guys, welcome to this new video. Today we are going to talk about pod resources in Kubernetes. So what are pod resources in Kubernetes? So sometime in Kubernetes we need to like specify the quantity of resources in terms of CPU and memory that a pod need to use. So there are some applications that for that to start we require certain number of CPU or certain number of memory so that they can start successfully. You have stuff like Elasticsearch, right? You have something I remember, Elasticsearch will require some type of CPU memory before it can properly start. And also sometimes we use this to limit the quantity of resources that we want a pod to use. So it is always by best practice to limit the quantity of resource that you want actually your pod to be using. So in simple language in Kubernetes, pod resources typically refer to the compute and storage resources that are available to a pod. Compute and resource include CPU and memory, while storage resource include things like volume, right? But here we are mostly talking about CPU and memory in this case. Now, and this is how we define the resource, right? This is how we define our resource. You are going to define the request and the limit. We are going to define the request and the limit. Now, we need to understand the meaning of request and the meaning of limit. So one of the resource you see, we say request, then after we say limit. So the request memory, the request resources is actually the amount of resources Kubernetes we guarantee for a container, right? That's a request, meaning that I'm requesting this for this pod to run. This pod needs 64 megabyte of memory and 250 megabyte of CPU. That is what you request from the cluster, right? That's the minimum that the pod will need to use to be successful, or the pod we need to start. Now you have the limit, right? The limit is the maximum, right? The maximum amount of resource that Kubernetes will allow the pod to use. So the limit is a maximum that you are setting. You are telling Kubernetes that I don't want this pod to use more than 128 megabyte, for example. So you set your limit to 128 megabyte for the memory and 500 megabyte for the CPU. So that's the difference between the request and the limit. So the request is the amount that the pod need to consume to be healthy. So for the pod to start to run smoothly, be healthy, and serve the application, that pod need at least 64 megabyte and 250 megabyte of CPU. So that's called the request. That's why you are requesting for that pod. Then you can also set the limit. You can tell Kubernetes that, okay, the pod is requesting 64 megabyte of memory and 250 megabyte of CPU. But the maximum that I don't want this pod to consume is 120 megabyte of memory and 500 megabyte of CPU. Now Kubernetes will adjust the request, right? If for example the pod need more CPU, Kubernetes can go over 64, but Kubernetes will never go over 128 megabyte of memory. If the 250 megabyte of CPU is not enough, Kubernetes will increase it onto 500 megabyte, but will not exceed 500 megabyte. So that's the meaning of request and limit when it comes to pod resources, right? Pod resource, and like I mentioned, the pod resource is just a mechanism that is just like resources that like the CPU and the memory that we allocate to a pod so that that pod will run smoothly and serve the application smoothly. And also on that we have the request memory and CPU, and then we have also the limit memory and CPU. I hope you guys like this video. See you guys on the next video. Thank you.